Greetings and welcome to our show, Fresh Geek Context. It is here we discuss insightful views on a routine, bi-weekly basis over the incredibly nerdy things we can't stop talking about. To take you on this dorky ride are your host, Josh.
There is no spoon.
And myself, Jace. So why don't you take a seat, sit back, relax. We're here to do all the heavy lifting. It's about to get nerdy. This is episode 17.
But what's the topic for today? No, I mean seriously. I have cards in front of me. I have no idea what to do.
You gotta read them.
What is this? Elon Musk announces new company Neuralink.
Keep going.
Number 2, Congress passes bill that would allow internet service providers to sell your data to third parties. What the heck is this? What the heck?
Right.
And Ghost in the Shell movie. Well, I mean, I choose this one.
No.
Well, I don't get it then. I don't get it. I have cards. What do I do with these cards? Help.
What do all these things have in common?
Technology?
Warm.
Technology and humans?
That's right.
Okay, so what does tech and humans have to do with the Congress selling your data to...
Because the lines between everyday activity like internet usage and advertisers are becoming blurred.
Ah!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, episode 17, Blurred Lines in Tech.
Yes.
Huh. That was a really long intro, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but there were so many topics to choose from.
So you just decided to blend them together?
No, you blended them together.
Alright, fair enough. These are talking points?
Yep.
So many decisions. Neuralink. What's a Neuralink?
Okay, so this is from TheVerge.com, our favorite website that we love to go to.
Oh, I love them. They're so great over there.
I know, they're wonderful. SpaceX and Tesla CEO Elon Musk, otherwise known as Tony Stark, is backing a brain-computer interface venture called Neuralink. The company, which is still in the earliest stages of existence and has no public presence whatsoever. By the way, little asterisk to the side, I have to pause this and just let all of our listeners know. Josh and I are really not feeling well. We kind of got sick at the same time. I don't know what the heck is going on. Maybe pollen,
Our
allergies.
internal clocks are synced together. This is also part of neurolinking.
I guess so.
We're both sick right now.
Yeah, so if we sound a little under the weather, this is the reason. That's why. But, of course, we're still coming to you. Moving right along. The company, which is still in the earliest stages of existence, has no public presence whatsoever, is centered on creating devices that can be implanted in the human brain with the eventual purpose of helping human beings merge with software and keep pace with advancements in artificial intelligence. These enhancements could improve memory or allow more direct interfacing with computing devices. Josh, thoughts?
So basically, he's creating the Matrix.
I don't know if it's really creating the Matrix, but I gotta tell you, I find this disturbing. Like most of the things that Elon Musk usually announces, I'm usually all for. Right? Electric cars, Tesla, all about that. SpaceX, just recently in the news, I know you must have seen the headlines. They recently reused a rocket to send out into space and landed it again successfully, which is great.
Yeah, saw that.
Which is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm not so sure if I'm feeling so great about this particular announcement because, as always, I have some questions.
I mean, yeah. We're already sucked into the internet at all times as it is with our smartphones. Now imagine doing that, but in your head. I guess you don't have to work. You don't have to look at a screen or hold a screen in your hand anymore.
I don't know if I really need that much convenience in my life.
I mean, just think about it. Like, how every once in a while we're talking about a subject and we're just like, oh, what was that person's name again? Or what was this name of this thing or whatever it is? And we kind of have to pause. We kind of, Google it real quick. Imagine if we could just pull that information, like, within nanoseconds and just be like, oh, right, duh, it's this thing. It sounds cool, but at the same time, it is a little bit scary to be connected to that level at every single second,
Do you remember have you ever seen The Office? The American version of The Office?
I have.
Okay,
Parkour.
so you meant no, well, not that episode. You remember when Kevin is in the office and he starts like cutting down his words, and people are legitimately confused as to if he has like brain damage or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he explains that he's cutting down on words to save time so he can see world, not the actual theme park Sea World, but to
Yeah,
see the world.
right.
How much time are we actually saving if we could just see the internet like that? Like, I don't know. That might be too much.
I mean, it definitely sounds like one. It sounds very, future esque. It sounds very like in the year 2172, mankind has turned themselves into cyborg type thing. Um, like I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, oh yeah, this is dope because of all the anime that we watch, or all the movies that we watch. But at the same time, if that fiction becomes reality, real world repercussions of it could honestly be a little bit dangerous. Honestly,
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Is this like, so my first question, is this ethical? What are the limitations of these enhancements? I mean, I'm assuming that you're putting in these chips to become the $6 million man or the bionic woman, right?
sure.
Are you becoming more machine?
I
Like,
mean,
what does
that's
humanity stand at the end of all this? Like, that's a serious question
exactly.
I have.
I mean, at that point, are you a machine? You're all right. I mean, just by putting a chip in you, I don't think that you're losing your humanity. That's just like some type of. That could be seen as some type of implant. However, if you start to think only with that chip in you, like you only start to think in that way, then down the line, could you lose your humanity? I mean,
What is
you possibly
humanity?
could.
What is humanity? I mean, that's always a question.
It's a deep question that I'm sure has been asked multiple times throughout,
What is
the
your
millennia.
definition?
My definition, I guess, would be a human is anyone who shows emotion, whether it be empathy, whether it be happiness, love, um, even being scared, afraid, any type of emotion.
But some people could argue with that point because
Right.
a
Because I mean,
dog,
you could well, I mean, a dog, does have all those symptoms.
right?
I
But
mean,
they're
does
not
have those
human,
emotions, but they're not considered human, but they're considered a living being, right?
right?
So that's
Something
that's
inherently human about something special and unique about us that allows us to feel this way or
yeah.
to classify ourselves as humans. But once we start adding these things, are we literally taking away our humanity? Are we trading in humanity for something else entirely? That's a I don't know, man. It makes me uncomfortable.
It can be an uncomfortable topic because the thing is this is something that can be very very disheartening to a lot of people. I feel like it can be very confusing to a lot of people. It's like, is that machine, or chip, whatever it is that you would implant in yourself, would that take you over as a person? Would that, I don't know, it's weird to talk about, especially even though we know these things that come from anime and stuff like that. When you start to talk about it for real, it's definitely something that's very scary.
It
um
is.
I mean, and the other thing about this is not only how would you feel about humanity, but is it also like a safe thing to do and things of that nature. So you go even deeper at that point. What can people hack other people at that point, because you're a machine now?
Well, that's the other question that I have. I have my list of talking points myself. Is this safe? That's my next question. Because now you're talking about hackers and the security of your innermost thoughts and fears and just private, personal things that you want for yourself is now completely exposed.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
You thought your Facebook getting hacked was bad? Phew, try your brain.
Yeah, there's some things, some embarrassing stories I'd rather not share with anybody.
Yeah. By the way, side note: do you ever have like a looping memory of something embarrassing that happened to you, or something that you thought that you did that you're just like, man, I wish I hadn't done that, but it just loops in your head every once in a while. Like one day you'll just be working and randomly that little thing will just pop up, and you're like, damn it,
It
the
just
heck.
that bothers me. I always want to know why does that random memory just pop up.
Yeah.
I always want to like, grab like one of those tagging guns that you see in those nature shows
Mm-hmm.
and like tag that memory and find out where it goes.
Right.
Because it's like it's so puzzling to me how the mind works.
Right.
We don't know how it works, but yet we want to put things in it to like enhance it. Like, how can we enhance something if we don't even understand what it is that it does?
Right. We don't understand our brains now. Imagine if were to put a chip inside of it, and then we can unlock like everything. I guess. I
Yeah.
mean, there would be benefits to that. There would be medical advancements and things of that nature that I feel like could benefit from this. But
So, like, talk to me. What would you say are some of the benefits? Because I think I know where you're going with this, but I'm not really sure.
I mean, when I think medically, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah.
Of that lost memory portion. I mean, you don't want to. How would I phrase this? Like, that could possibly help. Instead of losing your memory, you can kind of like keep it, so that already goes away.
Right.
Um, and that point, well, this may be more on a cybernetic level now at this point, but I mean, you could technically do cybernetic implants for like arms, legs, things of that nature. But if we're talking specifically the brain, um, your brain is what sends signals to the rest of your body, right?
Right.
What if you could tell your brain to say, okay, this disease that you're fighting, fight it smarter, I guess, and then that could possibly help cure the body even faster or better.
Right.
Little things like that. So as for the medical benefits, I can kind of see, but as always, there aren't people in the world that think only positively. So that's the scary part where that comes in now. Where if you can alter memories, you're opening the door to so much more. It's a little freaky. A
It
little
is
freaky.
freaky, I know, and this is something that we can, continue talking about. But I don't. This is something that we're going to get into a little bit as well. Um, you know, with the Ghost in the Shell movie that just came out,
Yep.
we'll talk about that a little bit. But can a human be then forced to do something he or she does not want to do?
Right. That's another portion of it. You can technically, I mean, it's a chip, right, or something of that nature. And you
Right.
reprogram that to say, all right, well, now I'm going to reprogram you to go hurt this person or do this bad thing for me. It's weird. It's
Like,
weird.
who's at fault now? If you are forced to do something that is illegal and you do that, are you the one that's at fault? Or is the person that's controlling your mind at fault?
That's the freaky part, because you could easily say, "Hey, I was hacked to do this."
Yeah,
Wink, wink.
I
I don't
know.
know.
Okay,
And then at that
so
point, how do you track that?
I see, then who knows? Maybe we'll discuss that a little bit later. But
Right.
my other concern was, is this fair?
I mean, it's not like they're gonna implant it into every person. I'm sure
No,
you
no,
have
no,
to
no,
opt
no.
into
I mean, what
this.
I mean is it fair as in educational testing or when it comes to getting a job? Like, are you just going to be downloading skills? Are you downloading skills for a price? Like, that is like crazy. Like somebody who's legitimately good at something versus somebody who has more money to literally download a skill.
Right. And they can just say, "I know kung fu" in the interview, and they're like, "Okay, you're hired."
Yeah, absolutely. Like super soldiers. Like what? Like where does it stop?
Right. I mean, yeah, because you literally over somebody who's spent years and years studying something, or like to get a job, and then this guy over here who did nothing his whole life, but he's like, you know what, I made enough money to do, I've inherited this money or whatever, and I put this thing in my brain, and now I know everything because I have the internet in my hands, and that guy gets a job over the other person who studied for years and years and years. I wouldn't say that's fair at all. So there'd have to be some way to be like, all right, if you got that thing, at the same time you can't really discriminate against the person, but like, how do you do that, right?
I see. This is what I'm talking about. Like there's some serious ethical, questions that have to be discussed, kind of like what we're doing here. But we're jumping into these newest companies that are not. I don't know. I feel like we should be talking about this first before we start talking about inputting things into your brain.
It's true, but what's the Ian Malcolm meme going on out there? Well, not meme, but he's been saying this since Jurassic Park. Your scientists have been so busy wondering if they could, they should. They didn't think about if they should.
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of falls under that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, I've been thinking about this, because every week we always have a list of topics to talk about. So I was wondering, do we talk about Neuralink? How do we stretch that for an hour-ish? Because, you and I have a tendency to go over sometimes.
Sure.
But then, the whole topic of the news that's been going on, with, Congress passing this bill to allow, internet service providers to sell your search data, your, what it is that you're viewing on the internet,
right,
to third parties. That is crazy talk. I mean, like, I've been really trying to wrap my head around this, and this whole idea of, the net neutrality debate has been something that's always been a little confusing to me. I've always had to read it multiple times just to get perspective.
Sure.
What is you? I mean, like, what I feel like I know what your take is because I talk to you about this every once in a while.
So, in 100% all honesty, my take on it is I don't necessarily mind it to a degree.
Okay.
And when I say to a degree, this is what I say. So you and I, we both have Instagram accounts.
Of course.
We have Twitter accounts.
Uh-huh.
We have, Amazon accounts because we like to buy stuff online.
Yep.
There are things that I've purchased on Amazon
Uh-huh.
that I have then gone to Instagram a week later, 2 weeks later. And you know how Instagram has, every once in a while sponsored Instas or whatever they're called.
Content, yeah.
Yeah, sponsored content. Sometimes that sponsored content becomes stuff that I have not searched on Instagram, but I've searched on Amazon.
So it's funny that you said that because that actually happened to me. And I was like, number one, I was annoyed, I was angered, and I was like creeped out by the whole like notion.
Mm-hmm.
Randomly on my iPad, I was looking at breath mints because I was running low on breath mints.
Sure.
So I went on the Amazon. I don't know if I was in the side of the app, but I don't think it matters because I went and I searched for Amazon breath mints. And I was seeing like 2-pack, 3-pack, 6-pack, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, I want to say maybe about an hour later, I was on Facebook. And then there was like, it was almost like somebody had copied and pasted an advertisement for like Listerine breath mints.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Those tablet strips that like dissolve in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It was right there, and it was like in the same colors that I had seen on Amazon. I'm like, whoa, how is this even happening right now? Like, it was strangely personal, but not really something I was asking for.
Right.
At all. Like, I understand the need for advertisements. I get it. It's been, a major, multi-billion-dollar industry,
Right.
since the 40s and 50s. I get it, but when is it too creepy?
That's what I'm saying. So stuff like that I don't mind. Like the thing that came up on my Instagram was
You don't mind that, you said.
for things like that I don't. So like the thing that happened to me
That bothers me.
The thing that happened to me, I bought a Blu-ray and then I bought a book. And, those things happen to show up on, my Instagram, and then, they show up on, if you go to your Gmail or whatever, they have like the little ads on the side or whatever it is.
Sure.
Those popped up. And I'm like, all right, well, Google, Gmail, obviously, I get it, whatever. However, when it gets a little bit too personal.
Example.
I mean, what's one that I'm trying to remember? One that I was just like, all right, that's a little. I noticed kind of like you did. It was a little bit too much. I'm trying to remember when the last time that happened, because. But basically, when it's not like things that are just like, oh, I was grocery shopping, or I was purchasing a movie, or I was purchasing something for my bedroom, like little things like that. I'm just like, all right, well, now for the internet knows I like this type of IKEA lamp, and I'm seeing advertisements for it everywhere.
So you're
Something like that. It's fine.
So you're okay with consumer items, but would you...
Exactly. So consumer items, fine, whatever. Just throw those at me. Who cares?
Okay, but if you're looking at, and I am not saying
sure
that this is something that you would, but if someone were searching for questions about somebody who wanted to inflict harm on themselves,
right?
Like, okay, advertisements for a clinic or someone to speak to, wouldn't be a far stretch, but like, is that too personal?
At that point, I feel like it can be. Like, let's say this is an example, this isn't something that happens. But let's say if I was, like you said, I knew somebody was going to harm themselves, I knew somebody was going to do something to themselves. If I were to search for clinic, if I were to search for, mental health places, whatever it is, and then I started seeing, hey, get yourself mental health, get this, blah, 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 I would kind of go, I don't need to see all this, or, or if it knew the context that I was searching. So let's say I was searching for the friend. Oh, get your friend this type of help. Call these people for your friends.
See, that's
where it gets too much.
You could say it's too much, but I would say that some advertising companies would say that they are heaven sent. They're doing you a service. So, like, what's too much? And that's the part that really bothers me. So now, with all that being said, this bill is pretty much a surefire thing. There are some things that you can do, or anybody that's listening, and specifically in this country, if you're outside of this country and you're listening to us, you must have a chuckle, because, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous. To me, anyway. It's ridiculous for me. Sure. But for those who are living inside this country, if this bothers you, you must feel hopeless, because this is something that you use, you've come to rely on it, but this kind of feels predatory. And honestly, there's some security risks here. I mean,
there can be, yeah.
If you're searching for something, your private information being sold out, that is a security risk. That is the definition of a security risk. And for context, for learning purposes, I don't know if you know this, Josh, but when you're searching for a website and it says HTTP : then the name of whatever the website is that you're looking for.
Yep.
Do you know that when you add an S after the P, it actually is a secure connection?
I did know that, actually. Yes.
Yes.
But there are a lot of people out there that do not, and a lot of people wonder what that HTTP stands for.
S stands for secure. I don't know if it actually means secure, but I'm going to say yes, because I know that whenever you go to a banking website or you're doing commerce, that S is usually added there. So know that everything is encrypted from end to end.
And you would also see a little lock next to it as well, most of the time.
Depending on your browser, but
depending on your browser.
Yes. But yes, that is one way that you could do that. But if you're feeling hopelessness, you can contact your local representatives and just voice your concern. Because if you sit there to yourself and you're stewing, like I am, how's anybody going to know? I don't feel like, I feel like they're getting a lot of concerns and people just like phoning in, writing letters, tweets, however which way you want to get in contact with somebody. Sure. This is a problem. It's a huge problem.
Yep.
So there have been a massive wave of shared articles that are on Facebook, that is on Twitter, that are suggesting VPNs for computers and mobile devices.
Right.
Now, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And there's a lot of services that exist out there. There's a lot of free applications you can download to your Mac or PC. You can set one up on your own, which, if you're tech savvy, it's going to be a little bit easier for
Sure.
you to set this up if you're determined to do this. But if you're just, cruising through the computer, you use it to pay bills, do some casual researching, and, this particular bill, potential law bothers you, you might want to sign up for one of these services. You can pay monthly, you can pay yearly, you can have a lifetime, fee, however which way that particular program that you're using it, or you could use free ones. Now, if you're interested in a free one and you just kind of want to know kind of how this works, Josh, are you familiar with Opera?
I am familiar with Opera.
So Opera, for those who are listening, and you can search this either using DuckDuckGo, which is not as invasive as Google is when it comes to creeping on like saving everything that you're searching. Um, but in any case, when you search for this, you search for Opera. It's an internet browser, and they actually have built-in VPN.
Yep.
You can turn that on, and you can cruise through the internet. You can block ads, so your internet viewing experience will be completely transformed because it's not loading all of this stuff that you didn't ask for. But there are some drawbacks, when you have it on your home computer or if you have it on your mobile device as well. You can download it for your iPhone. I believe you can also download it for your Android device as well.
Correct.
But I know for me, I've been trying it on my iPhone. Some drawbacks. If you do have VPN on, Siri does not work. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, you can use Siri at all. It just immediately stops.
Huh.
And you cannot download apps from the App Store, which is also there's some other things. If you're using Apple Music, cannot play music.
Ooh.
You have to turn it off. I don't know. Maybe that'll be updated in the future. It'd be really nice if it did. But I've been researching this stuff as of late, and I found some pretty interesting things so far. But here's my question, because I don't want to get too much into this, because when we come back, we're obviously going to do learning time, and we're going to do all this other fun and interesting stuff. But
Sure.
what my question to you before we break is, what are some of the good things that can come of this bill? Because that's the thing that I've been really trying to wrap my head around. Like, I can understand somebody passing a bill, someone making a law. Maybe they see something that I don't. I've been looking very hard for this, and I can't fathom how this can be good. What good can you see?
I mean, I've honestly been, I've seen this bill. I've thought about it as well, and in all honesty, I can't really think of like one benefit. Not even like a small one. Like the only thing that it would benefit would be benefit the corporations higher ups. That's about it.
So, I have been reading this. Like, I don't know. I read something, but it was like one article and like a sea of articles that were saying that this is bad. But apparently, the people that passed this bill are very much interested in progress in the technology field in that landscape. And innovation apparently has stalled over the years because advertising companies don't really know how to grow when everything is locked down. So yes, there's a lot of progress that have been stalling at this point. But I mean, again, if you're selling information, when does this stop? There is some progress that apparently can be done on the side of the internet service provider selling that information, because that revenue will allow them to innovate more in this area. Now, you and I are very much into technology. We're all for innovation. We know about this. I mean,
Sure.
we follow Apple religiously, and we're always very interested in seeing how they can innovate. and
Right.
different sections that they can improve. One of the things that have been making the rounds as of late, I'm pretty sure you know this already, is AR tech, which stands for augmented reality.
Right.
I don't know if this has any credence to it, but again, I read and I think of the possibilities. I think that's innovation. I think that can be interesting to have your existing reality enhanced or augmented to show you things that you didn't know. Like if you were at a museum, they have this
Right.
where, in certain areas, you may have, these earbuds on. And if you're walking through like the New York Museum, as you walk into a room, it may trigger something or it may tell you to go along this tour. And you don't have to have a tour guide with you, but that sound that you hear in your ears is telling you about something that you would not have necessarily have seen. They may guide you to a specific part of an exhibit or a painting and tell you to focus in on that and tell you this is what the painter or the artist or a particular figure was thinking at that time when they were creating that or as they were, whatever it is. That I find innovation because, earbuds versus your own personal device, that's innovation to me.
Right.
Um, I don't really know if I see the innovation in selling my personal data because, again, when does it stop? You keep moving that line towards, as much as you can get from me. At what point do I become the product? Well, you could say with Google, you already are the product. But when does it stop?
Right.
That's what I want to know.
No, I don't know.
It's a lot to take in. I know
It's a
this.
lot. Yeah.
But we have some time because we're going to go to break. There's a lot more to talk about with the landscape of tech. It's ever changing, and how fiction is quickly becoming nonfiction.
But how nonfiction though?
Have you ever heard of Boston Dynamics?
No.
We're going to talk about Boston Dynamics, and then that will come together, I'm sure, with learning time. But yeah, like I said, when we come back, there's going to be learning time about an interesting movie that came out this past weekend, and more about biology and tech, or tech and biology. We'll see you in a bit.
This is so much technology, my brain hurts.
I know. Let's go. Welcome back to the FGC podcast. We are your hosts, Jason Josh.
Hi. So I was thinking,
About
the conundrum.
which is
At what point do you actually stop becoming a human and move towards a machine?
it's funny how this always leads to learning time.
Wait, but what is learning time about?
In this episode of Learning Time, we talk about the classic manga and anime Ghost in the Shell.
That's clever.
Ghost in the Shell was created by Masamune Shiro, and much how it works in the United States. The 1995 film was inspired by the manga, which translates to sleeve in the Japanese language, but many know it as Japanese comic.
The manga was first serialized in 1989 as The Ghost in the Shell, which told the story of a fictional counter-cyber-terrorist organization, Public Security Section 9, led by protagonist Major Motoko Kusanagi in mid-21st century Japan.
Shiro had always wanted the title of his manga to be Ghost in the Shell, but his original publishers preferred Mobile Armored Riot Police. He had chose his name as an homage to Arthur Koestler's The Ghost in the Machine, which he drew inspiration from. Its core story questioned the blurred lines between humans and machines, and what the relationship was between the two.
Primarily set in the mid-21st century in the fictional Japanese city known as Newport City, political intrigue and counterterrorism were standard fare for the Special Task Force of Section 9. However, various actions of corrupt officials and cybercriminals in each scenario are unique and require the diverse skills of Section 9 staff to prevent incidents from escalating further.
In this post-cyberpunk iteration future, computer technology has advanced to the point where many members of the public possess cyberbrains, which is technology that allows them to interface with their biological brains with various networks. This can also be combined with various levels of prosthesis, enabling a person to become a cyborg. The main character, Major, is such a cyborg, having a terrible accident as a child that required her to use a full-body prosthesis to house her cyber brain.
In 1995, however, Ghost in the Shell was adapted into an animated film directed by Mamoru Oshii, which followed the storyline from the original manga. The film is considered to be one of the greatest anime of all time for the animation quality, musical score, and philosophical agenda, and was one of the few hits from Japan that opened the door to the success of anime in the West.
Many other anime series would follow, as well as another animated film, which would film the origins of Major. Ghost in the Shell has influenced many movies and series we know today, most notably the Matrix trilogy, James Cameron's Avatar, and Steven Spielberg's AI, Artificial Intelligence. And if the latest live-action entry is any indication, we are sure Major will have more stories to tell in the future. So, Ghost in the Shell came out this weekend, and it was...
Interesting.
Yeah, right? So we saw it. Josh, you saw the original, correct?
Yup, love the original.
Okay, good. So this movie was done with great care. And perhaps my feelings on this movie has changed due to, recent current events that has been on the news, right?
Yeah, but real quick though, does everyone have their passports
To where? What are you talking about?
to enter spoiler territory?
I can't stand that I didn't see that coming. Can't stand it when you do that.
It's what I do.
I know, and I'm okay with it. I should see these things coming by now.
I mean, you really should.
I know, for everyone that's listening, Fresh Geeks everywhere, we are entering in the movie review section with spoilers. Thank you very much, Josh.
De nada.
So, my views. This was, like I said, done with magnificent care. The visuals, which is arguably one of the, one side of the rare coin that holds up, with recent blockbuster hits that have come up and advancements in technology, there are still areas of opportunities in many visual effects department. It's crazy to think Jurassic Park came out, over 20 years ago, 24 years ago?
That makes me feel so old.
Yeah, but it happens. You grow.
Yeah.
That movie looks amazing, right? I don't know if you've seen it recently. I know you have. You saw it last year.
Of course, yes.
Right? And it looks
Still holds up.
Still good.
Yep.
I'm totally immersed in that world, and it doesn't feel like I'm taking a step out. That came out in the early 90s, man. That's real. And that movie still looks amazing. But then you have movies like Attack of the Clones. And even with the better advancements that they've made since the mid-90s to the mid-2000s, about a decade later, it looks like an epic disaster.
I mean, it also depends on the director and how involved he is, how the crew, how he is leading the crew, to, share that image, right? It's not just the CGI.
Yeah, but sometimes the image is a bad one, and inspiration is heavily needed, So that's that's the reason why I think The Force Awakens looks legit. All right, I'm just gonna say it. Ghost in the Shell looks amazing. Okay, I was a little taken aback though. I gotta be honest, because I realize there's a fine line between slavish copy and faithful remake, right?
Right.
There's this notion that you should take everything from the original book, or at least fans think that, this is the book, this is great, I love this, you're making a movie, you should just do that. Don't make any changes, don't get, cocky, don't experiment, don't do any of that. Just do what got you here in the first place.
Sure.
But I don't know if that works because if you're spending millions, I mean, I think we're in the realm now. If you have a book that you're taking and it's been optioned to make it into a live action movie, you're spending millions of dollars.
Definitely.
Spending millions of dollars on the director,
Big
to
budget.
the big budget, right? You're talking about talent, you're talking about um, director of photography, you're looking at the special effects department. You know, if there's action sequences, you need a fight team. Like there's a lot of effort that goes into it. So you might as well put your own take on it to have something new. Now, some people just take that and just go a little too far with it, a little too liberal with the changes that they make.
Okay.
But I don't know, man. It's just interesting because I thought it was done. I thought it was done well for the most part. I'm not gonna say it was like they hit it completely out of the park because I had issues with it. Um, but yeah, what do you think?
I mean, I thought. I mean, speaking of, since we're talking about visuals, I mean, visually, I think the movie does look stunning. I do like the blend of like the cinematography, like the very real world look and feel blended with that CGI.
Sure.
Like you said, CGI can look amazing, Jurassic Park, or it can look horrible, Attack of the Clones. In the case of Ghost in the Shell, I feel like it was blended so well that it falls towards the Jurassic Park line where it blends so well with the rest of the film. It looks very, very good. So visually, if we're talking visually only right now, visually this movie looks great. It's not it's the same world from the anime, but it's fleshed out even more. I feel like because
You're right.
in the anime, it's literally a city, right? There's not like it's not as flashy as it is in the movie. Which surprisingly, I thought the movie city, I guess, actually looked a little bit better in some places.
In some places, but I want to say that I'm surprised how well they got that part,
Yeah,
because there are, and watching the original, and everybody, if you have a chance, please watch this original movie from 1995.
yes,
It's There's a lot of sequences, there's a lot of scenes where they hover over just scenery, your
yeah,
environment, and that was done for a reason, I feel, because either a you know you have a budget and you really don't want to blow your budget on these fantastic action sequences. You may want to spend more of your budget to get better action sequences, and then you kind of fill in the rest. So
right,
either a, it was a decision by the director to have the audience really dwell in on what this city really was. And I think there was an added benefit, or it was done on purpose. And the intent of the director was for you to, get to immerse you inside this world. And I it's one of the parts that stood out to me the most. I never really, as a kid watching that, I never really, spent too much time looking at the scenery.
right.
You're really
You're just like, oh, it's friggin' boring music, or it's music over just like the city landscape or something. You didn't really think anything of it.
exactly. And most films, George Lucas does this. I mean, he's actually like really bad at this. When he directs a movie, it's very staccato. There's a scene, and then they cut, and then they show you the outside of where you are, and then they show you inside, and then they cut, and then they show you outside, and then they show you inside, and then they show you outside, and then they show you inside. It's very predictable, but with these scenes in Ghost in the Shell, it's very different, and this speaks to the differences between American movies and Japanese movies. They look at different things differently.
Right.
So I really enjoyed that. But not really to get too much caught on the visuals because I feel like it's all going to come together anyway. Um, there's a story, right? The story follows the anime for the most part, with some changes, Most notably, the villain.
Yeah. So in the anime, the main villain was the puppet master. In this movie, it's Kuze, right? Am I saying that
I
right?
think it's Kuze. I thought it was Kaizu, but Kaizu is the monster that's in that giant mecha movie with Idris Elba.
I mean, that's a different story, but yeah.
Different
All
story.
right. So Kuze, he's a hacker, who's targeting Hanka and its scientists in
Yeah,
there.
Hanka, ladies and gents, is the company that's responsible for making Major Scarlet's character, and that is the first cyborg that's all machine except for her brain.
Right. But there's a twist. Surprise. Kuze's not the bad guy.
Right.
It's Cutter, which
Well, that that was my problem with it. That was my problem with it. That in and
sure.
of itself isn't a bad story, but it's predictable, right? It's the classic bait and switch, which is
Right.
something that it's a formula. It's you follow the formula, you're gonna get a good movie. I don't know when America's gonna get tired of the bait and switch because we're getting up to a point now where that's what you expect. And if you train
Sure.
your audience, like I want to bring something to your attention. I don't know if you've ever realized this, but whenever you're watching a movie, let's say from like the silent film era, like really really early, like 30s,
Yeah.
like before sound was a thing, in film.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't even know when was the silent film era.
I think like 1900s to 1920s or so.
I would say so. Um, but in any case, you know how if they didn't have the audio, they had to rely on text. So you ever
Right.
notice when you're watching those old films, they have the text and it's on there for like, I'm not even joking, maybe about a minute. Like that's a
Yeah.
long time to be reading text on film.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever notice like it's there for like milliseconds?
Oh yeah.
Seconds is like a stretch.
Yeah.
So like, the Hollywood industry has trained its audience to read faster and to pick up on these cues. I don't really know if the bait and switch is really going to work anymore. So the bait and switch, right? It starts off Major Kusanagi. Well, her name is not really Kusanagi. She finds out later in the film anyway. But Major wakes up. She was in an accident. She doesn't really remember anything. And during the course of the film, she experiences these glitches, which is just memories of her past kind of coming into the present. So it's kind of this visual trick that they do, which I think was done remarkably well. And, as she is in Section 9, she is tasked with the responsibility of defending the scientist and the corporation that pretty much made her.
Right.
They're trying to find Kuze, who's this really dangerous person who has the ability to pretty much hack into any type of environment. There was a geisha that was shot in the beginning who was mechanical. Major goes in, finds this information, and leads her to Kuze. So Kuze is pretty much presented as the villain in the beginning. But as the story progresses, you find out that Kuze doesn't mean her any harm at all. It's Hanka, the corporation, surprise, that wants to do harm. And I'm like, okay, but I really wouldn't trust the corporation anyway.
Right.
Because they're not really the most transparent people on the face of the
To begin
planet.
with. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, that was my problem with it. I mean, you show you the bad guy, it's Zap. It's not, really. And that's where, we raise our heads, and then we got these blinders on.
What do you mean by blinders?
Well, you ever wonder why anime is so popular in the States, in this country?
I mean, it's the animation quality of it. It's different
You're,
from
you're, you're
anything
not
we have.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all, but it's because Japanese stories are so different, in my opinion. I can only talk to you about my opinion.
Sure.
It comes down even to the dubbing of the cartoon. For example, let me give you a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the main character in the series Dragon Ball Z? Have we had this? Have I ever asked you this before?
We have.
Okay. So
Um,
many people would say what?
Many people would say Goku.
Right, but you and I know it's
Right.
Gohan.
Yeah.
In the original anime in the book, it's very clear that Goku is not the main character at all.
Right.
So Ghost in the Shell fans fall in line with that fundamental shift of that change of Eastern philosophy to Western. The movie is good. I think it's great actually, but the source material makes you literally question your core existence, which is why I couldn't complete it as a kid.
True. Yeah. And then there's the controversy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, if if you've been following this movie, the controversy, everyone, is Scarlett Johansson being cast as the Major. She is a white actress. Many
Hmm.
people, not all, stated this is a of whitewashing.
So let's get some clarity here, which is what
Sure.
is the definition?
So, so my definition of whitewashing, honestly, would be a character or something from a book or something from an anime adaptation, anything like that, who is of different ethnicity
Hmm.
that is cast that is replaced by a white actor or actress in that role. So, in this case, a Japanese woman
Correct.
who should have, quote unquote, played the Major, has been replaced with an actor who is of white ethnicity.
And we see this all the time with lots of different things. We've seen it in Speed Racer. We've seen it in Dragon Ball Evolution. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm mentioning that movie.
Please don't ever mention that movie again.
I am sorry. I mean, we have to do these things. Most notably, Iron Fist, which is the fourth series in the Marvel Netflix universe. I think we can call it that.
Sure, yeah. We can say
Um,
Doctor Strange as well, technically, with Tilda Swinton.
yes, with the Asian one. I could see why they do it because if they cast that person, then it's a stereotype. So there's
Sure.
that argument of it as
Right,
well.
of course.
But I think really the core thing that it comes down to is just representation. There's a severe lack of representation. And for those that identify as white, they don't see that problem. They just see it as a movie. Let's take it on its merits and there should be no problem.
Right.
But there's a, a noticeable amount of groups that are left absent. And that's all they're really calling for at the end of the day. They just really want to feel connected, just the way everybody else kind of feels connected.
Right.
And there's also a lot of other things that are at stake. Culture not accurately being represented at all. I feel like Ghost in the Shell, I feel accurately portrays culture to a degree. Um, but I don't know. Scarlett, did this bother you in this movie at all?
It actually did not. I mean, here's the thing. We can only judge the movie that we saw, right?
Correct.
I'm gonna. We have a friend who is not really a friend because we don't know him in real life. However,
Right.
we would like to.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Chris Stuckman. If you haven't seen his movie reviews, please go watch them. They're pretty great. But
Oh, Chris Stuckman. Okay, I thought
yes,
you said something else.
no, Chris Stuckman.
Oh, Stuckman. Yes.
Stuckman.
Stuckman. Yes, I know Chris Stuckman.
Okay, yeah, he's a friend of ours. We like to call him a friend anyway. So I'm gonna kind of bounce off what he said. So we can only judge what we saw, right? We can only judge what we've seen with our own two eyes in the theater, and we can only judge the performance that she gave.
Right.
I would say, for the performance that she gave,
Hmm.
she was great.
Yeah.
I mean, she was good.
Yeah.
There's not much more I can say.
Right.
I mean, she played the character. She did it well.
Right.
That's that.
Okay.
I mean, she's awesome because she's ScarJo. ScarJo's amazing. She's
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, she nailed it. Now I know she may. I know there's still a lot of people that are just like, oh, I'm not gonna go watch this movie because of that. But honestly, that shouldn't stop you from watching a movie. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do. You're like, I'm not gonna give Hollywood my money for this because if not, that just means they're gonna keep doing what they're doing. Blah blah blah.
So how do you
Just
make your voice be heard then? That's really the question also, right?
I mean, yeah. How do you make your voice be heard at that point? You can definitely. I mean, voting with your dollars is obviously the biggest thing,
Of course.
but at the same time, you can go see this. If you don't see this movie, if you don't go to help the movie in the box office, then basically what Hollywood's also going to see is not that it was whitewashed, blah blah blah. They're also going to see this franchise is not going to make money, and we're not going to do another movie.
That's
So
also true. That's also
I
true.
mean, it's a double edged sword at that point.
You're absolutely right. And I feel because I mean we've seen this a lot of times without digressing too much. Gods of Egypt. It just came out, which was an
Oof.
atrocity. Um,
Yeah, that's a horrible one.
but movies about Egypt always seem to get this strange treatment of.
Want to talk about whitewashing? Oof.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie about Egypt featuring Egyptians, personally. I mean, maybe in Egypt, I'm sure there is a market where Egyptians are actually making movies and it appear locally for them. You know, when it comes to these movies, you have movies like Ten Commandments. That's one. There was another movie called Exodus, Gods and Kings. I think it came out in 2014 with Ridley Scott and Christian
Yes.
Bale. And
I remember that.
most notably this one, you know, they're all there. So I listen. I saw Ten Commandments when I was a kid. My parents had the double VHS tape, you know, so that's a memory, obviously.
Sure.
But as you get older, you start asking yourself some questions, which some people have difficulty answering, and that is, are these really Egyptians? Could they have tried maybe Egyptians?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you give it a chance, you give it once, you give it twice, to give it three times, and there was a severe response. I wouldn't call it severe, but there was a very vocal community that had said that Egypt was very underrepresented in a movie primarily about Egypt.
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't know, man. I remember watching Stargate. I don't know if you ever seen that. I thought that movie was great.
Yes, I agree.
And I thought, that was a very interesting take of what happened in Egypt. They were able to kind of explain these mythical ideologies as well as science fiction, and they kind of merged this wonderful story together. No one complains about Stargate, and as far as I know, no one complains about Stargate. But I don't know. It's just it seems to me that I think we should probably try something else. I mean,
Okay.
if one thing isn't working, maybe you should listen to the people that are, telling you to try things differently. I mean, you want the audience to come see your movies, you want them to be entertained, and the idea is you want them to continue coming back. But if you constantly ignore what they're asking for, then obviously you are not communicating with one another, right?
Right.
But I thought it was interesting, with Scarlett Johansson in this film. It was interesting because they incorporated it into the story, the reason why she wasn't Japanese, which is hilarious to me because it feels like they were anticipating that backlash, so they gave a really good reason as to why it was that way.
I mean, they probably prepared for that. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
But
But
go ahead.
overall, I was going to ask overall. What do you think about the movie overall? Like, if we were to give it a score, what do you think?
It's hovering. I don't want to give it like that 2 score because I think that was only reserved for Force Awakens, which I'm probably at this point leaning more towards an A for Force Awakens, but I digress.
Okay,
I want to give this movie a B plus.
that's a solid score.
It's a solid score.
Solid
Well,
score.
I mean, if you gave it a D, it would be a solid score too. No.
I don't know. I feel like this movie deserves more than a D for sure.
It it
It's definitely one of the better anime adaptations to live
Oh,
action.
absolutely. There's no question about that at all. But I gave it a B because I didn't leave wondering about myself. When I left The
Sure.
Matrix, I thought that was great. When I got the DVD release, I started asking questions like, what is The Matrix? Like that real philosophical, the Wachowski brothers were really, well, the Wachowski siblings now.
Siblings now.
The Wachowski siblings really did a fantastic job of bridging action blockbuster with this really thought-provoking ideology of what is your humanity, what is your existence, who are you, what is your consciousness.
Right.
I was expecting that in Ghost in the Shell, and I didn't get that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
if I'm watching Ghost in the Shell as Ghost in the Shell, it's gonna be okay. Like it's good. It's good. And there was a YouTuber that I watch every once in a while. Her name is, what is her name? Alicia. I'm wondering if I'm saying this right. Alicia Queen. I'm actually gonna put a link to her movie review for Ghost in the Shell. It's non-spoilers and spoilers. So if you're here and you've heard it this far, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully you've seen the movie, or if you don't care and you're really just wondering whether or not you should, definitely take her, give her a listen, because she's gonna have much more of a perspective that I can give, because she stated in her videos, many of her videos, that Ghost in a Shell is something that she grew up with, and she very closely identified with this story and means a lot to her. So the fact that one person was cast when literally millions of other people could have been cast,
Right.
she felt a little slighted by that, and it really shows in that video. I know I showed it to you, and I don't know. A lot of the things that she says, she makes a very great point.
Sure. Definitely.
And I don't know. It just, like we said, well, like I said before, when the story becomes predictable, you're not detracting from the movie, but the source material is just so much. One of the things that really bothered me actually was, how Keanu Reeves is very. It almost seems difficult for him to elicit emotion, but that's his charm now, so we just accept it.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
was expecting that for here, but Scarlett Johansson, for the most part, showed emotion. And that's not something that the anime really spent time doing. You really saw her in a shell. Like, she was almost devoid of emotions. And there's lots of times where she's walking through the city and she sees things that are strange to her. So she's very inquisitive. They did have that scene where she's going in through the city and she sees a female escort. And I don't know if she actually does anything, but she's very curious as to what is this human in front of me. And
Right.
she spends her time kind of touching and really observing her facial features and just asking questions. What is she? And that question is also returned. So I'm glad that they had that in there. But once the movie moves into the latter portion and to the finale, it becomes very clear that she realizes who she is. She is a human. She had these memories. She actually goes to her old apartment and sees her mother. Her mother doesn't recognize her because she looks nothing like her daughter that she knows.
Right.
But once Major finds that is her past and this is her life, she immediately wants to go back to that. I think with recent current events like Neuralink, like this privacy thing, and how pretty much the corporation is pretty much all around you, and you really don't. It seems like you don't have control. Who do we become at the end of the day?
Right.
So I mean, I think this movie could have done a fantastic job really getting to the core of, if you move this far down this environment that we've literally created for ourselves, the internet, cyber enhancements, augmentation, bettering ourselves. When does that stop? I think we came into this world perfect. Okay. You have a brain, you have a nervous system, you have muscles, you have eyes, you have smell. We are very capable people. And some people, through, hard work, determination, meditation, they're able to elevate themselves to something that the average human being is not capable. You see this with monks all the time. They're able to
Yeah.
do things. You see this with martial arts masters. Okay? There's this guy. He Sato Karate. I know of this because I was in karate when I was a child. And this master, last name Nakamura, I forget his first name. It escapes me. But there was a picture. I was reading his book because he wrote a book. It was very large pictures, and at the time I love pictures. So I was reading the book, and he was in a dark room with all of these, candles. And he walked up to a candle, and he's prepping himself or meditating, and he punches out the candle. And I was like, oh, punched out a candle. That's no big deal at all. So I tried it. 10-year-old me, I tried it, and it's not easy to do. So there's something that your mind is capable of doing lots of amazing things, right?
Right.
We are not, I think, as a whole, as a people, I don't think we're really like utilizing what our mind is truly capable of. But now we're gonna go in and start messing with it. Like, I really think this movie could have really led to the question, as opposed to just, oh, I'm moving into the abyss that's scary. I'm gonna run back and find my humanity. There's nothing wrong with that, but let's dwell on that question.
Well,
Where
what is humanity?
what is humanity, and where are we on that scale? As opposed to just running back to what we know. I don't like, that's the part that really bothered me the most, you know. And then there was the machine robot at the end of it, which is something I was looking forward to more than anything because, as you know, I played the video game Ghost of the Shell for the original PlayStation back in the late 90s. I loved that game, the Fuchikomas.
Oh, so good.
But that tank really, I wasn't feeling it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I wasn't feeling it as much as I thought I would be enjoying it. It seemed really clunky, but it fit in that universe. I gave it a massive pass, But you know, it had pretty much everything. You know, when she rips the tank open and she kind of loses an arm. You know, as you know, that's all in there.
Sure.
But I wasn't questioning my existence. That's my problem.
Which is the main point of the original.
I think so. I mean, you're gonna make such
one of them,
but you're gonna make such an avant-garde, story, and then make it into this, critical, successful hit that takes the world by storm.
Sure.
If you're doing the blockbuster, you have to acknowledge all of those parts. You can't leave that to like, oh, well, we're just gonna. I felt like they dumbed down the story. They did. They totally did. And the story that I'm not even going to say they've replaced it with, because for the most part, like I said, the beginning was pretty much the same. And they touched on a lot of parts, but the ending it wasn't as strong as it could have been.
Sure. I mean, to me, I feel like they definitely did dumb it down. The reason I think they dumbed it down is because of a little movie called The Matrix Reloaded. Do you remember how people responded during that entire architect scene when they're explaining everything about the Matrix?
Yeah, because I was one of those guys.
Exactly. So now,
although I didn't knock it though, because I thought like I was totally on board with the whole thing. Still, I just had questions, but many people were
right.
upset.
But here's the thing. So when you go that deep into something, though, the normal average person who were to go see this movie at that point, they're just gonna go, I don't get it. What's going on?
Look,
which is what I think they were aiming. They were aiming for the general audience for this movie.
Listen, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But there is another thing that I really like in some Japanese stories.
Sure.
Sometimes mangas, sometimes animes. They root it in this reality. And so when you root something in reality, it's not predictable. There are some things that happen that are unpredictable. So when you have this element of unpredictable, what can happen is that somebody may get in the way of a mission, or something completely out of the ordinary may snap and just move the story in another direction. I think it would have been really interesting if Major was, at the end, she's laying next to Kuze. The sniper hits Major instead of Kuze. Because it almost feels like that Kuze was this catalyst for her to make that decision to, stay human, or to maintain her humanity.
Right.
But, the main character has to survive. She could have survived, but that, I guess, decision by, Cutter going in for the sniper shot, if Major had been affected, it could have been something where she lost her progress. And she's wondering if she should continue, or she lost the capability of feeling emotions. So she's literally left with a choice. Like, you could have
Right.
left it open ended. You don't have to close it. Like, this story
True.
is so close ended. It's absurd. Like, she sees the grave, and that's when they reveal her name. It's Motoko Kusanagi, which I was saying out loud at the theater screen when I watched it. Well, I said it inside. I didn't want to ruin it for anybody else. I was like, it's Kusanagi. Come on, just say it. So you see it on the tombstone, and you saw it. Like, her mother's there. She's they hold hands, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm not going anywhere." And I'm like, this feels very 80s. Like, it just feels like this very contrived type of screenplay.
Sure. It didn't feel Ghost in the Shell at that point.
It didn't feel like what Ghost in the Shell could have been. Now, look, if this does successful, and from what I'm seeing, Rotten Tomatoes, they're giving a great rating so far.
So far.
And critics are, it's being pretty well received. At the end of the week, obviously we're recording during the weekend. When it's supposed to be Monday, at that time, we'll find out what how well it was received. But I anticipate that it's going to be, pretty good. But, if they do this, they're going to do Akira. Now, Akira has the makings of a wonderful blockbuster successful hit.
It does.
I can see it being well received by critics, fans, making a lot of money in the box office. Unfortunately, I could also see sequels. And Akira is not something that you make into a sequel.
No, that's a one-time thing and you're done.
Right, but at the end of that movie, again, you are left questioning everything. I don't see American studios committing to that. Like, it just makes their brain explode. It just doesn't work.
Because then they can't make sequels off of it.
That's a lie. At the end of Akira, when you see, like, the little tiny, speck of light, sure, you absolutely can make sequels because there are so many questions that are left open.
Sure. Yeah. True.
I also feel like they really didn't need to make a spider tank / Fushikoma. They could have just called up Google and say, "Hey, do you think we can borrow one of your prototype tank robots? Because I know you have them down there. I know you do. I know those robots are scary as hell.
They are pretty scary.
But that's where we are right now. That's all I got. That's all I got to say. Neuralink, I don't know if I'm really on board with that. Obviously, we have to wait and see. The internet thing, I feel like it was almost bound to happen. So set up VPNs until somebody develops new technology that will help the users, like Tron. And, after that, then, we'll see what happens. We'll see what other anime movies, make it. Hopefully we'll never get another Dragon Ball Evolution, ever.
Did we not just say never to mention that movie again?
I know, but we have to constantly remind ourselves of the atrocity that can exist when somebody gets a property and they have no idea how to make it work.
I'm just gonna say one thing, and then I think it's that time. What would you rather watch for the rest of your life? Dragon Ball Evolution or Fan 4 Stick?
Ooh, God. That's like diarrhea or vomiting. Like, which one would you rather have? It's all coming out terribly, so do you want it on the bottom or at the top? Which one do you want?
And on that note, I think it is now time.
Man, that time.
Yeah, it's that time.
Oh well. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll tell you what, if you like what we had to say, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Jace Rocklin, and Josh.
I am at JCA90. You can also find us at FGC Podcasts or email us at freshgeekcontext@gmail.com.
You can also visit our website at freshgeekcontext.com for past episodes. And lastly, if you could, please hit that subscribe button for us on iTunes. It goes a long way for us to know that you're listening. You can go to the podcast section or the podcast app on your phone or iPad, and you can share with your friends so they can be Fresh Geeks too. Everyone. Yeah, go watch that movie. You enjoy it. I think you're gonna like it a lot.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah,
I actually have nothing witty to say this time.
I know.
I'm devoid of emotion.
Oh, you did it! I don't know how you do it. You're so clever.
That's what I do.
I know. All right, have a good one, everybody.
Bye.